What's up, Giants fans, and what a day it is to be a Giant fan. As late last night, reports surfaced that the New York football Giants have officially hired John Harbaugh to be the franchise's next head coach. It's official. The team is expected to hold a press conference early next week to announce the head coaching decision. And today, Giant fans, is the first day in years that we can rejoice and be happy to be Giants fans because they finally got a hire correct. Whether it was Ben McAdoo or my favorite nickname, McAdoofus, uh, Pat Shermer, Brian Dable obviously was a bust. I'm forgetting the other one in there. The Giants, Joe Judge. The Giants needed to get a hire correct. And it feels like with this hire, with the hire of John Harbaugh, they finally got it correct. The Giants knew that they had no other choice but to go out and get their guy. They did it. They did it the right way. They got the Rooney Rule done early so they can make sure that they get their guy. Then they went out and they fully got him. So let's go through this first. So the Giants yesterday held Harbaugh at their building in Jersey. He was there. So was Jackson Dart, Mr. Mara, Chris Mara, Mr. Tisch, Joe Shane. Everyone was there, toured the facility. He was there forever. Then he flew out last night. Now, we all thought, and reports were coming out throughout the day, that the Giants weren't going to let him leave. They were just going to try and get a deal done then. He ultimately left. And I think we all thought, like, oh shit, they might not get this done. Like, I tweeted out the Giants can't close the deal. It's like, shit, like, what's going to happen? Then Diana Rossini walked back a tweet. Like, well, unless the Giants can stop it. And it's like, well, what's that supposed to mean? Then he left. So it's like, all right. I think everyone was like, all right, he's going to interview. But then it was like, okay, but everyone came, like, he came to us. The Falcons, who had the Fugazi first interview, which we're going to get to in a minute, and the Titans were going to go to him. It's like, well, that's weird. Like, why would he be taking formal interviews like there and not want to go see their facilities? Well, I guess he went home last night on Steve Tisch's plane. He went home and I guess spoke to his loved ones and decided enough with the dog and pony show, enough with the interviews, enough with all that. I want the Giants job. I'm going to just take the Giants job. I want to be done. And that's what he did. He took the Giants job. So let's look at some tweets from last night from Ian O'Connor, who really had this whole process, because there's some things I do want to talk about this. I guess Harbaugh said, okay, here, first one. Harbaugh said that he was picturing himself in Giants colors last week after he was fired. He thought it was the job for me. He told a source close to him. This is a monumental hire for the franchise, which we all know. This was a big one. This was a big hire. He thought himself running out the tunnel, picturing himself in the jacket. The legacy of the Giants means a lot to him. They were at the top of his list before he was even fired. The Giants knew how much it would cost to get him, and they're willing to pay it. This is important. We're going to talk about this for a minute. This is from Connor Hughes. You can barely see it. We're going to talk about this for a second. And for those who are on audio, just the tweet reads, there was a lot of talk this offseason about Joe Shane and how he would be a detriment to the Giants coaching search. I had one GM text me that he couldn't see Harbaugh taking the New York job because of the uncertainty there with Joe Shane. Clearly, that's not the case. I think Joe deserves a lot of credit for getting this done with Harbaugh and Harbaugh doesn't take the gig if he doesn't know and believe in Shane. I agree with that. Look, I've been very hard on Joe Shane. I'm going to continue to be hard on Joe Shane. But I think Joe Shane deserves some flowers. He got the deal done. And more than that, there's a lot of concerns with Shane referring to his overall, draft quality, free agency, the way he sets up a team, the way he constructs a team, like being a general manager. There's a lot of worry with that, and there's concern there. Harbaugh coming in, to me, alleviates a lot of that concern. It alleviates so much of that concern because John Harbaugh is going to have his paws all over the roster. That's one of the contingencies of this contract. Of if you're hiring me, I'm going to have a say. Like, yeah, did Dable probably have a say? Yeah, he probably had some say, but he probably didn't have the autonomy that Harbaugh will because Brian Dable didn't have the resume that John Harbaugh does. And if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the first head coach the Giants have hired since Tom Coughlin, who was on the recruiting team for Harbaugh. The first head coach since they hired Tom Coughlin that comes with experience. I know Dable with head coaching experience. Dable didn't. I don't think Joe Judge did. I'm going to do a quick fact check on this, just to make sure I'm right. But from what I remember, the Giants haven't hired anyone with head coaching experience in the last 4 cycles. So I was wrong. Pat Shurmur had head coaching experience with the Cleveland Browns. He was only here for 2 years. Brian Dable did not. Joe Judge did not. And Ben McAdoo did not. Tom Coughlin had the Jaguars before he came here. This is excluding interims. Shurmur was the interim with Philly for a year. So this is the first time that they've really hired a legit head coach since Coughlin, probably. Because, coordinators and all that are one thing. This is a biggie. This is a biggie for the culture that is the New York Giants. A culture as pristine as the Giants are. And a team that is as good as they are. Like, they have pieces, right? They have Jackson Dart. And this is why the Giants' job differed from so many others and why this probably eventually got done and what closed the gap. The Giants have cap space and can restructure contracts to make it even more so. Right? Jackson Dart is a stud. He's going to be a great franchise quarterback, in my opinion. You have Cam Skattebo. You have Malik Neighbors. You have Abdul Carter on the defensive side. You're going to have to fix some stuff up. They have work to do. All right. This isn't hiring John Harbaugh on January 15th or 14th, really, it came out, and saying, okay, let's go win let's go have a winning season, make the postseason, and screw around and try and win a championship. That's not happening yet. They still need to put a team together that can compete on the field. And I think they will. Because I think John Harbaugh is going to have a lot of input on this roster and is going to have a lot of input on the coaches. He's already bringing in, barring a head coaching opportunity, Tom Monken to be the offensive coordinator. He has some experience doing that. He's worked with Harbaugh the last 3 seasons in Baltimore. So we'll see what happens with Todd Monken to be the offensive coordinator. I guess there was some disconnect in Baltimore with, I guess the disconnect was maybe with Lamar and him, but Jackson Dart is so young in his development that he doesn't have the gravitas to kind of say no to what they're saying. And the Giants need people like Monken, like Harbaugh, to come in here and coach. This is the first time they're going to actually have someone who knows what they're doing, who has a track record of hiring a good staff, as Harbaugh does. They got this right. They got this correct. And for the first time, I have faith in this organization this offseason to go out and do something, and you know that they're going to come in and win. Now, someone said yesterday, well, he blew fourth quarter leads this season too. Okay. That's cool. We know he did. Part of me also thinks that Harbaugh needed to change the scenery. Clearly, something wasn't working, as something wasn't working in New York, and we know it on our side. Something wasn't working in Baltimore. Whether Lamar Jackson didn't want to listen to Harbaugh anymore, or didn't want to listen to the offensive staff, or whatever the situation was. At some point, it gets played out. And it got played out in Baltimore. And that's unfortunate. But it's a fact. It got played out there. And is this Andy Reid Philly? Andy Reid leaving Philly, going to Kansas City all over again? I'm not going to jump and pounce and say this is going to be a dynasty. That'd be awesome. But I think the Giants have a legitimate shot of doing this. And this should show you just how much they wanted John Harbaugh as we go back to the tweets here. This is from the other night. Giants executive Chris Mara told The Athletic that he met with Harbaugh for lunch on Sunday and had an informal meeting at the coach's house. Keyword there is informal. People on both sides say Harbaugh remains very interested in the job. That was 3 days ago. Okay. That's great. He remains interested in the Giants job. He wants to be here. Cool. Then we get that tweet from the Falcons that we've completed a formal interview with John Harbaugh. Well, they didn't. It was a phone call, like the Giants and other teams have had with him over the past few days. That's what it was. So through connections, the Giants caught wind of this. The Giants caught wind of the Falcon interview. And Chris Mara flew down and did what he did. Ian O'Connor then added to this tweet, "This was the day I realized the Giants would not be denied John Harbaugh," which is great to hear. That they had a clear path. They knew they had been doing research on Harbaugh for months. They knew that they had heard that there were issues in Philadelphia, in Baltimore, that he could leave and he could be the next head coach and he could be a free agent. Let's do our research. Let's see what we can get on this guy. They knew they wanted him. And that's what, they fired Brian Dable. They knew that wouldn't be a path. Obviously they gave Mike Kafka a chance, who's interviewing now for offensive coordinator roles around the league, including Philly. And actually Brian Dable's interviewing in Philly. They were not happy with the Falcons overplaying a phone call with Harbaugh as an official interview. And I guess they weren't alone. I can assume the Titans weren't happy. The Dolphins probably weren't happy. And I'm sure the league probably wasn't happy that this is getting at. Like, a phone call isn't an official interview. Unless it's like a Zoom, I guess that counts as a virtual interview. And you would say, like the Giants did, we completed a virtual interview with Vance Joseph, the Giants didn't put that out. The Giants actually never officially put out that they were meeting with anyone, which I find interesting in this, which goes to tell you just how much they wanted Harbaugh, right? We all knew because there are leaks. We all knew that who they were meeting with. We knew they were meeting virtually with Vance Joseph. We knew that they had brought in Raheem Morris, right? And I'm sure, and this was all on the books with the league. I'm not saying that this is fugazi, but they didn't officially officially publicize an interview until they will about Harbaugh, which just tells you how much they wanted him. And the fact that Chris Barra, and clearly he didn't do this rogue, he got approval from the rest of the family, went on the record with The Athletic to say, yeah, I flew down to Baltimore. I met with John. Yep, we had lunch. We met at his house. We had a conversation. He wants the Giant job. He's invested. He wants to be here. It's a big deal for the Giants. It's a huge deal for the Giants. The Giants needed to get this right. They needed a culture change. They needed someone who would come in and command respect. Brian Dable as was a hothead on the sidelines. He didn't know what he was doing. He wasn't the guy. Sure, he got it right with Jackson Dart. You'll give him that. But he's an offensive coordinator. At the end of the day, he's an OC. And at the end of the day, he's an offensive coordinator. John Harbaugh's a head coach. He has the experience. He has the pedigree. When you hear the Harbaugh name, it commands respect. And the Giants players will respect him. And they will want to play for him. Right? Imagine what he can do with Jackson Dart and the rest of this team. Right? We all knew Shane Bowen wasn't a defensive coordinator. That was Dable's friend. We all knew he sucked. Chris Bolin was actually, and he's interviewing for DC jobs around the league. And you know what? He deserves one. I think the Giants should hire one outside. Wink Martindale was brought up. Like, would Wink come back? Like, he worked with Harbaugh. Like, what's the relationship there with Shane? What's the relationship there with the Mara family and the Tisch family? Like, would he be willing to come back? Is that an option? Don't know. Let's see. But what we do know is that for the first time since Tom Coughlin walked out that building, the Giants have a clue. The Giants have a plan. They know what they're doing. And it all starts with the draft. They have the 5th overall pick, which is probably the highest pick that John Harbaugh's had in quite some time. He's going to know what he wants to do. The Giants are going to have a plan in free agency. Well, the draft comes after free agency, so you should say then it all starts with free agency. But they're tied together because they'll have a plan. Free agency begins in about 2 months. A little less than 2 months from now, free agency will be in full throttle. The Giants are going to have a plan. They have pieces, fundamental pieces. Like I mentioned before, they have fundamental pieces on the defensive side with Abdul Carter and Brian Burns. On the offensive side with Malik Neighbors, Jackson Dart, and Cam Scatteraboo, among others. They've got the pieces to build a playoff team. They have a coach that will allow nothing less than winning. He wants to win every time he steps on a field. If it's scrimmage, if it's a postseason game, he wants to win. And now you're going to be in an organization that's a winning organization that wants success. And the Giants, they needed to hire John Harbaugh. They went out and they hired him. They did a great job in this. They acted quickly. They checked the boxes. They got the Rooney Rule done before Harbaugh was even taking calls. They knew exactly what they were doing. They had a plan. And now next week, they will announce that they got their guy on a 5-year deal with upwards of $100 million. He's going to put out his own staff. He's going to do everything he needs to do. And the Giants coming into 2026 will be restored for glory. And now we look ahead to free agency and to the draft, and look forward to a season. Giants fans can actually look forward to a season for the first time in a very long time. And we could say the Giants have a clue, and the head coach is not a question mark. Because even going into last year with all the happiness coming around Jackson Dart, the head coach was a question mark. He's no longer a question mark. Joe Schoen is less of a question mark, and that's important. Let me know your thoughts. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe. Let's go, Giants. Thank God they got this right.